God-sized story.
Hello and welcome to another episode of God-Sized Stories. We're very blessed. We have Julie with us today. Julie, tell us about yourself.
Hey, Craig, it's a pleasure to be here. I just wrote a book called We Are Stronger Together. It just came out on Leap Day this year, so not long ago. That was kind of the leap of faith. We found out later that February 29th happens to be Rare Disease Day. So God has been in the details since the beginning. He called us to write it. And this has just been a labor of love. And we are just so excited about the outpouring. Continue to get messages. My phone pings with reviews, and it's just so encouraging. I'm so grateful. My middle son, Seth, he developed an incredible rare disease just after his 7th birthday. So perfectly healthy and happy family. Never expected this to turn our world upside down. So we write about the journey of how this just changed our world in every way. We have literally walked the road of faith where the rubber meets the road in the hard, very difficult things. I think everyone can take something away from this because even if rare disease hasn't hit your family, life is hard. It's challenging. Let's admit it. And I feel like there are commonalities of broken dreams. Life didn't go as planned. And there are ways that we cope through adversity, clinging to the Lord, that it takes you to another level of faith. I know it did for us. I mean, where you find yourself thanking God for this trial that has brought us closer to Him. And I hope that people take away hope. Don't give up. Don't give, and you're not alone.
That's super encouraging. And, you know, the audience has gotten to know me pretty well over the years of doing this. And they know, like, obviously, besides God, my biggest passion is kids. So, you know, when good friends recommend me books about, you know, stories with kids in it and real life things and real life stories that are happening, it encourages me to pick it up and to read it. In our shared friend in contact of Kathy, who's been on many times, and the audience has grown to love as well. The second she met me, she's like, "You need to meet this friend of mine. She has this painful yet beautiful story of family that you need to hear." And I immediately got so excited. And then she gifted me the book. And as I was sharing with you earlier, I was like, oh no, I have to finish these other books first. And so I slotted it right in there, right in the middle. It skipped 2 or 3 books, but there's 2 or 3 books it couldn't skip. And I'm like quickly trying to read through my hard books so I can get to something that is more encouraging and life-bringing. And I am super excited. We were sharing earlier that this is a book that someone can just fly through and just be so captured by. And that's what I love about our God, is He can orchestrate those moments in our life. What are some like feedback that you've gotten from people with that idea alone about this is a real page turner kind of thing?
And I didn't really expect that, to tell you the truth, because they shared, I'm a busy mom and I don't have time to sit down and read someone's novel or memoir. And so I saw it as more of almost like a devotional, like 20-minute chunks daily of little stories within the stories and lessons learned. But what I found from people's feedback is once you get into that first chapter, which is only 5 pages, you can't put it down. And so that's literally the feedback that I've been getting from people who never planned to read the entire book. I mean, we live in a day, let's face it, with social media and people's attention spans. They want to scroll. And so I couldn't expect someone to read an almost 400-page book Kathy's remarkable. I mean, you mentioned Kathy. She was my editor extraordinaire. Actually, she's in the afterword. We talk about our God story of meeting and now becoming like family. She was she's brilliant with writing. You know, I'm very factual. I write like a journalist, and she was pulling details out of me. And what she always said was, what is the reader going to get out of this? Because it's at the end of the day, it's about the reader. And, what is their takeaway? They have to, when they pick up a book and make the decision whether they're going to spend the money or invest the time in it, they have to be able to take something away. And so there were so many lessons in there that I felt were so important to me through this journey. And I've always felt if we can share our story and be vulnerable and transparent, and yes, it's scary, and yes, people may judge us, and you're putting yourself out there, but if it helps, I don't want to sound cliche, if it helps one person, but it's true. If you can help someone that just might be starting this journey, and we're here in Minnesota and we're waiting to go to the hospital tomorrow and the next day. I mean, this is our journey, and this is and these are our people. And whether it's the Ronald McDonald House or at the clinic itself, we walk side by side and shoulder to shoulder with people that are walking chronic illness, disease, who have unknowns, are just walking into this journey. And if I had the 15, 16, 17 years behind me, that I could speak life into these people and say, you're going to get through this. Just keep on keeping on. Don't get discouraged. Don't give up. And suffering is a mutual language. You don't have to know the person. We've met people that come from all over the world because they've exhausted all of their resources. They've been told there is no hope. There is no cure. There is no name. We have no treatment. We don't know. We haven't seen this before, whatever the case may be. And when you are told that, it's a heavy burden to bear. And feeling like you're alone, feeling like someone doesn't understand, feeling unheard, all of those feelings. We've met people that don't speak English. And so we're side by side in the waiting rooms, and I can see the weight on these parents' faces. I can see the weight in the eyes of the children and the adults that are the patient that are weary. And even if we don't share the same language, we do. And it's incredible how God has knitted us together in that way, that we can connect with someone. He never intended us to live this life alone. He never intended us to carry the weight, the heaviness of this on our own. And so the name, We Are Stronger Together. I couldn't think of any other name. And we tried, because we talked about different names that would draw people in, different names that would give a clue to what the book was about. But at the end of the day, it really is not a story about a mom that nobody knows and a kid from a small town that, who cares, right? About the story. It's about the power of community. When we literally come together and help one another to bear each other's burdens, how God is glorified in that.
That's super encouraging. I'd like to ask then, because I heard a lot of good thoughts and stuff to wrap ideas together. Like, what would be a good all-encompassing word to describe the book?
Yeah. And we've asked a lot of people. I'm a little partial, but at the end of the day, they all said the same word. They said hope. It gives me hope. It gives me hope that, and even if healing never comes, even if we don't understand in this lifetime, even if we have hope, we don't suffer through this as those without hope. So hope comes in different forms, and I throw it around. My daughter's middle name is Hope. I hope it, doesn't rain today. I hope for this. I hope my team wins. But hope is a powerful word, and it really has the potential to change lives, change perspective when someone is at the brink of wanting to give up and saying, I can't do this anymore. And Seth has said those words to me when he was little. He said, I can't do this. It's too hard. And I said, you're right. You can't. And he looked at me with big eyes and I said, but God can. And when Seth started to receive God's sovereignty and plan, and that this didn't catch him by surprise, and he knows and he will reveal things in his timing, and we need to trust him and trust his plan and see the good and be grateful for the people that are all around us, whether it's the cleaning lady, the lady bringing in the tray into the hospital room, or it's the mayor of the city that's giving him the key to the city. And all those in between. There are so many lives that, one life can impact so many. People say, what can I do? What can I do as a kid? And I say, you're never too young to make a difference. You're never too old to make a difference. You're never too unqualified. I am the poster child for the most unlikely, unqualified person to write a book. I honestly feel like that. If God can use me, I am ADHD, I'm dyslexic,
Oh, yeah.
I don't like to read books. It's a challenge for me. My focus isn't there, and I'm busy. And so when I felt called to write this book, and last summer, we almost lost Seth. He went into cardiac arrest. His brother did chest compressions and his dad mouth to mouth. And it was just, when he woke up and we talked about it, and it was really traumatic. And I said to him, you can talk about this and, your feelings and, were you scared? And he said, boy, it would have been a train wreck if I would have died before this book came out. And to know him, he's always seeing the bright side. He has such joy. Like he's so funny. And, if you don't laugh, you'll cry because you're like, oh my goodness, he's saying this book is important. Let's get this book out. So that was the tail end of making sure that these edits, we worked just as hard as we could. So that was last summer. And the book came out, like I said, in February of this year. And so right up until the very end, these things were happening and there was so much content. And it was like, how do you end a story that, a cure isn't tied up in a little bow? We're still at the hospital. We're still in treatment. We're still walking this journey. I think that's the cool part about it. Like, we're still walking by faith, and we're still every day, it's a decision. Are we going to be grateful that we've been given another opportunity and another day? And life's a gift, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So for the audience at home that might be curious, what would be the best way to two things? One, best place to purchase the book, because there's always a million different places, but I know typically authors have preferred places to purchase books. And then if instead also they want to just reach out to contact you for either more questions or opportunities to speak, where should they reach out?
That's great. Yeah, so it's available on Amazon. I feel like that's the easiest nowadays. You click on it and, in 2 days it's at your door. Yeah. I also, of course, I carry them when I go and speak. We were just in Indiana for 3 days. So shout out to Brazil, Indiana. Seth and I were joking because we don't have passports. We've never been out of the country, but we drove through Morocco. We ended up in Brazil. We saw bison along the way. We're just like world travelers, right? So a little tiny church contacted us, a congregation of 28, and said, we've read your book and we want you to come. And it was the sweetest time. They invited 20 other churches, and we did Q&A, and Kathy went with us, the three of us. These people just loved on us. I mean, they just cared for us in such a way. Seth is tube fed, so he doesn't eat solid foods. So, and he also collects the pop tabs off of soda cans for Ronald McDonald House. So they had popsicles and pop tabs for Seth. And, then he closed the congregation in prayer. Like, this is what it's all about, right? Just meeting people, encouraging one another. I'm sure that room was filled with people struggling. I know it. I mean, we're all struggling with something, right? Even if we can't see it, even if it's invisible, depression, anxiety, mental illness, you name it. And we all know someone that needs prayer. And just being able to fellowship and encourage one another, like the Bible says, as iron sharpens iron. It was sweet. It was a bittersweet time. So sethsjourney.com is our website. There's a place there, Julie at sethsjourney.com, to email me. I do have to put out the disclaimer. Like I said, Seth is still in active treatment, so it depends on his health and how he's doing. So first and foremost, I need to put that first. So I don't want to wear him out too much, but yeah, so we left refreshed and renewed, and I hope we did that for them as well.
I was encouraged hearing you talk to that. Yes, we all have trauma. We all have people in our lives that are going through stuff too. And then to hear you talk about Ronald McDonald House and the wonderful pop tabs. For the audience that can't see at home, I also collect the pop tabs for Ronald McDonald House. This is a very small portion of the many, many, many that we collect. My sister-in-law spent many, many months in the Ronald McDonald with issues with giving birth to one of their sons. They had to live there for like 3 months and learned about all of that then. And ever since then, I have been so impassioned to we'll just be on the street and I'll see a can and I'll pull the tab off and stick it in my pocket to save for when I get home.
That is wonderful. Once you realize what those little tabs on cans are about, you can't unsee it. You can't, it just affects you. You're right.
Exactly.
I mean, we have an 80-year-old gentleman, actually 83. He recently passed away. At his funeral, there were pop tabs all over the dining tables. And because he saved tabs for Seth, I mean, he made it a passion. In the nursing home, he was telling everybody about Seth and the Ronald McDonald House. God bless him. I mean, just that ripple effect. And I think people want to do something to help out. They want to show kindness. They want to be a part of something bigger, but they just don't know how. So Seth will explain to you exactly how the rest of the can has alloy in it, and this is pure aluminum, and they get the premium rate, and they save it up, and then they cash it in, and that offsets the cost of the house. But bigger than that is going back to the power of community. I mean, we don't collect that many tabs ourselves because we're a big family. We drink 2 liters. But, there are people that bring in bags. And even if it's just a couple, like you said, get 1 or 2 in your pocket and you bring, together we can do so much. And so Seth had this goal of, I want to collect 1 million pop tabs. And whoa, okay, a pretty big goal. Okay, but we serve a big God. Let's go with this. And this was on the shirt tails of the expansion project. They were wanting to literally double the size of the amount of rooms. They had a waiting list for several years. And this is one of their biggest annual fundraisers, is Pull for the House, they call it. And so raising awareness, decided he wanted to have a float, a pop tab float in our local parade.
That's
And
so cool.
people were running up to the float and they were pouring in pop tabs. And at the end of the weekend of that parade, we rented a U-Haul and put all these tabs in. And when we finally got the drum roll of after they were all weighed, because 1 pound is, I believe, 1,267 tabs. So they can tell you exactly how many tabs without counting them. It was 1.7 million.
Wow.
So, and that was back in 2018. And so we continue every time we come to the hospital, we bring, we have 200 pounds in our car right now to bring tomorrow. So, we exceeded many millions, but, people from all different states, they're a part of bringing them to us, and their businesses then get involved and they do pop tab drives, the high schools, the elementary schools, the local clubs, 4-H clubs. I mean, it's just so cool to see people come together. It's incredible.
Well, Julie, thank you so much for spending this time with us today and for sharing your book. As you said, it was no small task it's no small task for anybody to write a book and everything that goes through, because it's not just sitting down and putting words on paper. There's so much more that goes into it, especially when there's such a bigger purpose behind the book besides just writing something for entertainment. Thank you for putting forward all that diligent work, and then also being a mom. You said mom of 7 and also grandma of 7. Like, that on its own is almost too much for me to think about.
Well, God is so good. I mean, I just have to give a shout out to our kids. They're incredible. The resilience they've had, because, I do have to say, sometimes the highlight gets put on Seth, but these siblings are fierce warriors just the same. They are selfless. They step up to the plate. They are just some of the most incredible people I've ever met. And, many of them are adults now. So it's not like I have 7 at home as babies, but, they've grown up through this life. I mean, the youngest were 1, 2, and 3 when Seth got sick.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, they've grown up and they've been a part of this journey, and they're incredible human beings. So, I wasted some time, like, God, what are you doing? Dividing our family. I've got to be off taking care of Seth and trying to keep him alive and traveling from medical center to medical center, finding doctors that have never seen a case like this before and said, I'm sorry, I can't help you. And then, to see them now, how this has impacted them and their lives, and how courageous they are and how they trust the Lord and their circumstances. You see the good and you're just like, thank you, God, you can use anything for your glory. And you promise to work these things for good. And so anyway, I don't want to get any credit. God gets all the glory. This entire series of small stories into the big picture. There are so many stories of people that have walked this journey alongside of us, that have helped to strengthen and hold us up when we were just ready to fall. And I believe God put those people into our lives. And there are tangible reasons, there are tangible examples of what a person can do to come alongside someone that's suffering. I mean, whether it's your neighbor, whether it's your cousin, or whether it's your own child, tangible things that you can do for someone. Because often people say, well, what can I do? And, first pray, but there are tangible ways. You could come get laundry. You could fill up the car with gas. You could watch, help watch the kids, take them to school, whatnot. And all of these examples in this book are put in there intentionally to say, look at this other person, what they did to help us in our journey. Because at the end of the day, if there isn't a cure and possibly he won't get better, and there's not that light bulb moment we had hoped for, all along. And I don't know, maybe God, will still do that, but you know what? Only he knows. And that's not always God's plan. But the big takeaway as well, I feel like, is just because we're in the pit, just because things are really difficult right now and we're exhausted and, whatever, that doesn't have to dictate our attitude. Someone asked me, another mom, her son was having open heart surgery, and I was sitting with her waiting to hear, he was on the machine bypass, and she was scared. And she said, so my son, once he gets his heart fixed, can go on and live a normal life. But your son isn't going to get better. He can't have a surgery to fix him. How can you have joy? Like, really, where does that come? And so the message is, this isn't just a toxic positivity where you psych yourself into just being joyful all the time. It comes from having a relationship with the Lord and knowing that he's in control and that I can trust him at any time. So just knowing that I don't have to have a poor attitude because our circumstances are difficult right now. And my children taught me that, really. I mean, they, through the resiliency, through their depending on Christ, that childlike faith, right? That teaches adults. I had a poor attitude for something far less. I would see Seth sitting in a hospital bed. He's got IVs. He's hooked up with machines, and he's joyful. He's actually, telling me, let's get this book out. Yes, I almost died, but hey, let's talk about this. Let's share the gospel. Let's talk to others about how good our God is. I mean, that's incredible. That's incredible. Oh, yeah. Someone can take away to be more joyful, to appreciate things more, to have hope, and to come alongside one another. And we are stronger together. I mean, it's not a downer book. I promise you will not spend hours reading this book to say, wow, this is, like a horrible ending of a movie. Like, I just spent 2 hours watching this movie and there's no happy ending. No, there are victories, and there are, it's you'll laugh, you'll cry, but there's humor in there. Seth is pretty funny.
It sounds like I'll definitely be laughing at some of the things he says, for sure.
Oh yeah. Laughing and crying at the same time. Oh.
Wow. Well, Julie, thank you again one last time. This has been nothing but, as you said, joy. This has been a very joyous thing for me to hear about, and to continue to hear about your family's story, because it is your family story, as you said. And I look so forward to digging into this book. I look so forward to hearing from the audience, and hoping they can sink their teeth in as well, because there's so many great ways for us to hear the great stories that God lives through our lives and connects us with. And I so want people to be encouraged by this, as you said, and to be encouraged mostly by the thing you said of saying that God gets you through. I want them to hear that. I want them to be encouraged by that. And for those that don't have that, I want them to have that, obviously, because that's what as well gets me through the day as well.
Yep. Yeah. And I want to, 100% exactly what you're saying. But I want you, a gentleman had said, and I asked him to read an advanced copy, and he said, to tell you the truth, he said, it wasn't what I thought it was going to be. And I said, oh, what did you think it was going to be? And he goes, I thought it was going to be like a preachy book where, and he's like, but it wasn't. Like, your faith, you owned it. But you weren't you weren't shoving it down anybody else's throat. You weren't, and that is so. I'm glad that he saw that, because at the end of the day, we all have to make that decision, right? And there are many circumstances that God allows to bring us to that point of surrender, right? Where we make decisions. And so I am not coming at a place like I know better than anybody else. And this is how I actually come at it with humility. Like I am a hot mess. And I'm, God can use me, can use anybody. But yeah, I mean, when you're in this place of life and death, you really see an amazing God. And I hope that people see, like, yeah, this is for real. This isn't some Sunday school story. This is legit. I have seen miracles. I have seen transformation through this adversity. And it's been life-changing for me. It's been life-changing for my family. And I hope that others see that as well. So yes, I'm all about people, if they can email me, tell me their thoughts. I love to discuss this. I love popping in on book clubs and just hearing what people have to say. It's been such an encouragement, a huge encouragement for all the work. This is a story I would love to see it to get into high schools and people talk about, disease is invisible disease. And I wrote a poem about that. Someone yelling at us in the parking lot, why are you parking in the handicapped? You should be ashamed because you can't see from the outside that his organs are failing and whatnot. So looks fine, not fine, destruction on the inside. That's the start of the poem. And how many of the high schoolers are dealing with hard things that people can't see? And people of all ages. Seth is a part of a community of special needs who might not ever be at the level to read this book and the medical diagnosis and the vocabulary. But there's over 80 pictures. So I wanted people to be able to thumb through it. And then we're working on the audio where people can listen and they can hear the personal, intimate feelings of what the story along the way, the laughing and the hard times. Kathy's really good at that, and she has volunteered to do that. So I know she'll be phenomenal. So we've got a YouTube of Seth's Journey 9 as well. Facebook, Seth's Journey 9, the number 9. And so look for that coming soon, Lord willing.
Exciting. Well, thank you again one last time, Julie. And thank you, audience. As always, I couldn't do this without you. Goodbye.